Elections to office and the Constitution of Alabama, bills that deal with the Constitution, amendments to the Constitution, and our state constitution has had how many at this point? Do you know offhand?
I don't know offhand, but before last year we voted 2022 to change the Constitution. So now it's called the Constitution of Alabama 2022. Prior to that, it was 1901.
Wow. Wasn't the world's longest constitution?
It is. It is. It has been amended so many times.
Not changing that. We're keeping that right now.
We're number one, right? We're number one for something, yes. That and obesity, yeah. Number one for,
Chad, how are you?
One more time, and I've done it before. Who's from Sims? Who got Sims? This is Shane Stringer. Shane represents parts of Mobile and parts of Baldwin County. So these are exchange students from Mobile and Baldwin County. And you want to tell them what you want them to tell everybody in the country they're from?
how many do we have?
We have 11.
11. Let's just do that real quick, and then we'll go into session. Okay? Would y'all do that? It doesn't matter which end you want to start on, but just introduce yourselves and tell us what country you come from. If you would, please stand.
I'll say that.
Everybody, okay?
You want to start?
My name is Leon. I'm from Norway.
From Norway. Okay.
He's at Foley.
Oslo?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Anouk, and I'm from the Netherlands, and I go to Daphne.
The Netherlands, all right.
Nice to meet you. I'm Isabel, and I'm from Sweden. I live in Robertsdale.
Okay, very good. From Sweden.
I'm Elizabeth and I'm from Germany and I live in Sims.
Okay, Germany.
I'm Sophie. I'm from Denmark, and I go to Robertsdale High School.
Okay, Robert Stale.
I'm Camilla, and I'm from Italy, and I go to Loxley.
Okay.
My name is Ella, and I'm from Sweden, and I go to Spanish Fort High School.
Okay.
My name is Matilda. I'm also from Sweden, and I go to Daphne.
All right. Welcome. Thank you for being here. All right. We have a couple of bills on the agenda this morning to deal with. And I want to welcome all of our guests to Constitution Campaigns and Elections. My name is Bob Fincher. I'm chairman, and you see we have a distinguished panel here today. I'm going to call this meeting of the committee to order. And if you have a cell phone or device, if you would please cut that off so we won't have any interruptions. And the committee's filling in nicely. So, okay. Cliff, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Chair.
Here.
Mr. Mooney. Ms. Gavan. Mr. Pringle.
Here.
Ms. Clark.
Present.
Mr. Simpson.
Here.
Mr. Rafferty. Mr. Passel.
Here.
Mr. Hassel.
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Mr. Harrison.
Here.
Mr. Lomax.
Here.
Mr. Rigsby.
Here.
Mr. Robertson.
Here.
Mr. Sherry.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Butler, would you lead us in prayer?
Absolutely. Let me pray. Lord Jesus, thank you so much this day. Thank you for all your blessings that you put on us. And pray for every family represented here, Lord, and help us to be good stewards of all you entrust us to as we serve our state, that we may also serve you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. We have two bills before us today, House Bill 464 and House Bill 457. And we have them listed in that order, so I'm going to call them in that order. Representative Hassel, would you present your bill to the committee, if you would, if you don't mind?
Say good morning.
Good morning.
So, I think the synopsis explained it perfectly on this, so I'm going to take it from the synopsis. In order to vote by absentee ballot, an elector must complete an absentee ballot application, which includes checking off the reason he or she wishes to vote by absentee ballot from a specific list of reasons. When the elector submits the absentee ballot and casts his or her vote, the elector must again check off the reason for voting the absentee on the affidavit submitted by the absentee ballot. That this bill will remove the affidavit form from the list of reasons for voting by absentee ballot. So if you look at your applications, you'll see the questions for the absentee application. So if you put anything wrong in the application, you don't get an affidavit. So these same questions are on the affidavit. So only thing this bill will remove, just the same questions on this application off the affidavit. So I ask, you pass this bill favorably.
I have, all right, we'll get to that in just a second. As he said, this does not do away with the having to list your reason for voting absentee.
No, it doesn't.
It's done on the front end and it's done on the back end, and this removes the back end. This is removing the second of those. All right, committee members, you have any questions for the sponsor, Representative Haskell?
Well, just a comment. I'm going to support the bill. I think it's a good bill. I spoke with my clerk and she's sure that at times, currently right now, if you mail in your absentee ballot, there's 4 reasons it can be rejected. And this is one reason that your vote cannot be counted. And so some people that get in a hurry and they just forget to check that block, although they checked it on the application. So this is just another way to make sure that if someone went through the process, legally, we want to make sure we maximize each vote in the county. So I think it's a good deal from talking with my clerk and other members in my district. So I appreciate you bringing this forward.
All right, thank you.
Representative Pringle, you had a comment.
But the absentee ballot itself will have to have a signature of the witness, right?
That is not being taken off.
The ballot? No, that's not being taken.
So there will be somebody verifies that you are that person and you have asked for that absentee ballot.
That's right.
All you're doing is taking off the reasons.
That's right.
Well, will the reasons be on the application or they be on the ballot?
Be on the application. Be on the application.
You're gonna take the reasons off the application?
No.
You're
Off the
taking off the
affidavit.
ballot?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure.
Yeah.
Can I see the affidavit for the ballot? This is, I've got,
You want the, do you have the affidavit? I think
I've
you
got
have
this
it.
one. Which one is this?
No,
She has
you
that.
have the
She needs to see
affidavit.
the application.
That's the application. And this is the ballot.
No, that's the application.
That's the application,
Okay.
and this is the ballot.
Okay. So they're going, okay. That's all I want to say.
That's it? Okay. Representative Shirey.
So I spoke with a judge from my area, and his issue with it was the affidavit carries more evidentiary weight in a prosecution. I also spoke with the Secretary of State this morning, and he's opposed.
He's opposing, you said. All right.
So I mean, the affidavit for the request of the ballot, the affidavit on the ballot.
The affidavit.
There's only one.
There's only one affidavit.
There's only one affidavit.
There's an application that gets you your
Yeah.
ballot, which then goes
But
with
we're
it.
leaving the affidavit in place.
The affidavit's in place, just not the reasons for the.
Yeah.
that
The
change.
affidavit's in place.
The affidavit's still in place, but those questions are not.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I thought.
Representative Harrison.
Do the reasons have to match? Is that a reason for rejection of the?
No, I don't think they ever even go back and check.
That's
When they
exactly right.
do
don't
that,
check
they,
any of this
they
stuff.
look to see that 4 things are on that absentee ballot when it comes in. This is one of the 4 things, this checklist. And the checklist is done on the front end, so they have a record of why you were requesting an absentee ballot. This is just taking it off the affidavit. Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Clark.
Thank you. I'd just like to give a little bit of background here. Representative Hassel actually had 2 bills that he introduced that could have been vetted by this committee. One of those bills was one that would cure an affidavit. In other words, if you submitted an absentee ballot when the absentee election managers open that envelope and there's a problem on the affidavit, it's not signed, for example. In most cases, it goes in a stack that's not gonna go much farther. When I talked to our chairman about this, may I quote you?
Oh, you certainly may.
He said that there are some circuit clerks that already cure affidavits, that they will return them to the voter if it's missing a signature, for example. In many big cities, they don't take the time to do that. You all know that absentee election managers are swamped at election time, and many do not take the time to do that. The League of the State League of Women Voters wanted the bill introduced that will allow the curing of affidavits. Our chairman said, meet with some circuit clerks and see how they feel about that. I had the opportunity to sit in on that meeting. Among those who were in that meeting was Circuit Clerk Clara Woodall. Anybody from Houston County? She said she had already spoken with the Secretary of State and that instead of curing the affidavit, they felt these four circuit clerks, and your circuit clerk from Montgomery was among them. I don't remember the names of the two gentlemen, but at any rate, they said instead of curing the affidavit, they thought a simple solution would be to make this simpler. I mean, look at how cluttered this is. Look at how small this is. I mean, it is confusing. That's the reason why a lot of the affidavits are completed incorrectly. So these clerks, these circuit clerks who deal with this all the time, it was their suggestion to remove this information because it is redundant. It's already on the application, the reason that you check. Now, mind you, I don't know if you all know, but none of this stuff is verified. It is not verified. So you ask if anybody matches to see whether what's placed on the application matches what's on the affidavit? No. No is the answer. We're just trying to make this a simpler process, and this is what 4 circuit clerks recommended. Not 4 state representatives, but the people in the trenches recommended this.
Representative Hassel's original bill, and he did go and speak with the Circuit Clerks Association, who oversees most of our absentee balloting. And I think we ran into time problems as far as curing ballots and mailing back and forth and all of that. How long it would have to be prior to an election to deal with that kind of thing is what they ran into. This is what's being taken out. This section right here is what's being taken out. Everything, the other 3 things will still have to be there. So,
but they would be more prominent, and they would allow the voters to concentrate more
it will
on
give
what's
them more
left.
room to put that, on the affidavit without that. Chad, Representative Roberts.
I'm just curious, if the affidavit holds more weight, why is it the first not going away with and keep that?
Well, the reason for that probably, Chad, is because you have to have a reason to seek an absentee ballot. And that's why you need it on the front end. They're not gonna send you one unless, you know, you have one in the front end of it. And of course, we've got photo ID as well. But, you know, there's certain things you have to do in the front end of it. And one of those things is you have to give a reason for seeking an absentee ballot in the state of Alabama. And so that has to be on the front end. Did I answer your question?
It is, but
So you won't
could it be an affidavit?
Hmm?
Could it be an affidavit?
The application that has.
The application itself, I mean, you have signed why you are seeking, they have the paperwork. They have paperwork as to why you are seeking an absentee ballot already before they send you.
So may I ask Mr. Shari, my fellow delegation member, I'm
You
sorry.
still have the floor, I'm sorry.
No, we're fine.
I may have
This
interrupted
is
you.
good. I just
Yes.
checked with the Secretary of State. He said that the affidavit carries more weight, not no weight, right?
That was a judge from Mobile that
Who said more weight,
I
not no,
can't quote.
Yeah.
not no weight, but more weight.
It carries more
And I
weight.
agree with you that there's a signature on that application, and that if the Secretary of State's office wanted to prosecute somebody, they could based on that
So
signature.
it's, the signature on the application is not witnessed and notarized. Is that correct?
On the application.
The affidavit is signature.
You do not have
On the
to have
application, do you have to have
notarization.
signatures,
But
witnesses?
it has to have witness.
Yeah, you gotta have a witness signature on the application.
They could have copies of the application too?
No, ma'am, but I
Just
can,
the-
I can maybe get one.
That's okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, Director.
You had a question, all right, Representative Pascal.
If you look at the bill on page 67, I'm sorry, on page, on line 67 and 68, once the reason is removed, this will be, added to the affidavit, which states, I am entitled to vote an absentee ballot for the reason specified on my absentee ballot application. So it's reaffirming that And then for us, the weight statement about affidavit carry more weight, the penalty is still there. The penalty, is actually on the application itself. And then the penalty, reference is still also on the affidavit, stating that if you swear that everything is correct, anything that is incorrect, you'll be prosecuted. That statement is still on the affidavit. So I think, once again, from my research, initially I wasn't feeling good about the bill. But once I started researching, talking to my clerks and so forth in my area, once again, I think it's a good bill.
On what we were just given, the witness down there at the bottom is obviously for someone who signs by a mark.
Yeah.
And that's what the witness called for down there is actually, it's not, you don't have the two witnesses you have on the actual act. Are there any other questions? Representative
Yes,
Butler?
one, this is not that hard. I'm just curious, why do we need to remove this? And why is it so much trouble for someone to check one of these boxes?
Well, for some people it is. Well, this is the thing is, you got the same questions. And so some people get confused by the second time they do the questions, right?
So are we having a lot of widespread issue with people not being able to do this?
Yes. It's just simplifying, even with the clerks. The clerk said, look, if you simplify this enough, it'll make it easier for our job.
My concern is that the Secretary of State's opposed to it as a top election official. Anyway, that's my concern. I was just curious. I had never heard of anyone complaining about this.
Yeah, well,
I was party chairman 2 terms. I've been really involved for a couple of decades now, and had never heard this.
Like in the meeting we had, Representative Clark stated, because this idea came out of, well, she even stated, I'm good friends with West Side. And she said, if we can simplify this affidavit, she was in that meeting. And it's actually, this idea came out of that meeting. You know, I can't figure out why Secretary of State is against it. Because I think this will make a job easier for all the clerks in the state. Also, it'll make it easier for voters. And so, and you ask the same questions on the top of it.
It seems to be moving towards no excuse voting, I guess, and I'm just guessing that, no excuse absentee voting.
The affidavit still has to have a residence, it has to have the voter's signature, and it has to have witnesses or a notary public. So there are 3 things that would still be required on this affidavit. We would be removing before. Yeah. Yes, Representative Lomax.
Thank you, Chairman. So Representative, currently what would take place if a voter used a different reason on the affidavit than they did on the application?
Nothing. I can tell you nothing.
No, that's right.
These things are not verified. I mean, absentee voting is, the whole process needs to be improved. I know people who vote absentee for convenience. They check any box on here because they know that this is not gonna be verified. A classmate, for example, a high school classmate who retired early, travels, goes all over the place. She said, I might be out of town.
Right.
So she just checks a box, whether she may end up being here, but on election day, she's already voted.
So the reason's not verified, which of course no one can verify if you're sick or you're out of town or whatever, but if a different box is checked on the affidavit than the application is, and I understand certain clerks may be too busy to double check that and all that, but is there any statute that says anything about what happens in that case? Is it valid, invalid, or?
So in the application, because of my understanding, if they do not approve what's listed on the application, you don't get an affidavit. So you're not gonna be out of town. I mean, or if you don't stay out of town, let's say I'm physically incapacitated and would not be able to vote in personal election day. So you give me these reasons. So let's say somebody just signed and don't give a reason. Do they get an affidavit?
Do they get a ballot?
Do they get a ballot?
If they don't get a reason, if they don't give a
That's right.
reason,
So you don't even see this anyway.
With all due respect, Representative Hassel, I'm not sure you're answering Representative Lomax's question. I think what you are asking is if they don't match.
Right.
Is there?
Oh,
Is there anything?
Could I just interject here? The people that actually look at the affidavit, or the people counting, are your poll workers basically who count the absentee ballots, they don't even have access to the applications, who are in the absentee, you know, they're in the office down there somewhere, they don't even look at those, they would not have the opportunity to cross-reference and see if they match. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
They're
Mr.
down in
Chairman,
the circuit clerk's office, and they're somewhere in the
Right.
building counting ballots, or opening the ballots, and they will look at the affidavit, and they will check, the poll workers will check to see if those 4 things are filled in on the affidavit. They don't really have anything to compare it to.
And I understand, Chairman, in reality, that may not be happening, and I'm actually trying to get to what actually may help the case for the bill is what's the code now? If I checked a different box on the application and then I did on the affidavit, does that now mean I'm falsifying information, even if I did that by mistake?
If you check
Like,
two
what's the
different
law
boxes.
say? Right.
On the thing, you check one when you ask for the absentee ballot, and then when you actually vote your ballot, you check another one. You know, I've never known anything to be prosecuted in that manner, in the state of Alabama. But could it be, we have legal minds here that, Matt, you wanna jump in on that one?
My concern and the problem that I have with where we are here is this is taking, the language takes the excuses off of the affidavit. It doesn't take the excuses off of the application. So if someone is sending in their application to say, I want an absentee ballot, send me an absentee ballot. They can get the absentee ballot from the application, but this affidavit, if they go back and they have to check if anybody challenges the election, if anybody's challenged from this, they can pull the affidavit because the affidavit is sent back in with the ballot itself. So it's not having to go to the second, let's go figure out what they said in the application. Let's figure out what they said here. This is the document, this is the one that will be traveling with the packet for the ballot itself. So I question why take it off of the affidavit. I don't see why we take it off the affidavit if it matches what the absentee ballot request is.
Well, if you take it off the application, well, this is the reason why I need it. I have to see that, right? This is why it's stated. So you're gonna look at this period, I think that it's the same thing. If I'm going back and get the affidavit, I go back and get the application.
I think it's a lot more tenuous to go back and have to look and try to find the application than it would be to say, this is the ballot, this is the affidavit to travel with the ballot itself.
And so that does.
There's never any attempt to match them up. Representative Robertson, you've been.
Initially, I was on board, but then the words easy come in to play, that y'all use, making it easier. To me, that reduces the integrity of voting in my mind, and that's my concern about it. If things aren't getting checked like they should, is that because of laziness or what? I mean, is this not concern or what? But we need that integrity in our voting, I believe, and this is a checkpoint.
So may I substitute a word for easier? I mean, if that will.
Well, I mean, that just stuck out.
The idea was to make this user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help any? I mean, it's convoluted right now if you look at this. And Mr. Chairman, I know this is not a public hearing, but Representative Butler asked if there were statistics, and you didn't use that word either, but you want to know if there were situations where ballots are not being counted because of the current layout of the affidavit. I think that's what you were asking. And I do know that our state League of Women Voters president does know some statistics. They're probably rolling around in her head, if I could put her on the spot.
We're not having a public hearing, so I don't want to get the audience involved in this, to be honest with you. We don't need to bring audience members into what we're doing.
I respect that. I wish I had the numbers, but I have seen them.
I've just never had anybody, like, people complain about a lot of things, this has never been.
Representative Shirey.
I have 2 comments. I think Matt hit the nail right on the head. There is a reason for it to be on the application. There is a reason for it to be on the affidavit. And to some of the other points, it is against the law to check a box just to get a ballot. It is against the law for convenience.
It's done all the time.
just because it's done all the time doesn't make it right.
I just want, I'm
And
just
and
stating
I
the
understand what you're
facts.
saying, and I understand that, but it is against the law. If we wanna change the law, let's change the law. Just not excuse the crime.
All right. One other, let's see, Representative Harrison, you had your hand up.
Just wanna say here, point out that it says, check at least one. I infer from that, you can check multiple ones, and they're not compared to each other.
Right.
Just one, the reason when you submit the application could be different from when you send the ballot in, right?
I'm in the armed forces, I'm out of the state. You can check both of those, I suspect, you know, or whatever. Yeah.
And then the
And they
concern.
would both be true.
Yeah.
They would both be true at a given time. All right, are there any other comments or, yes, Representative Rafferty?
Yeah, I would just like to say, you know, respectfully, Representative Butler, I know that during the pandemic, I was hearing from both Republicans and Democrats from across the state talk about how cumbersome and agonizing the absentee voting process was. So it's not supposed to make it easier. It's not supposed to, you know, question or put in any issue voter integrity. What it's simply supposed to do is, like my colleague here said, just make it more user friendly. But I've certainly heard from people on both sides, from all over the state, concerning how awful it is to try to fill out an absentee ballot or confusing it is. So that's just my comment there.
Any other comments, any other questions for the sponsor, Representative Rigsby?
Mr. Chair, Representative Hassel, I've not voted absentee ever. So I don't know that I understand the process. When I fill out the application, I'm sent a ballot with an affidavit. That's the two pieces of paper.
You send the application to get the application.
Right.
You'll get a packet.
Okay.
You'll get a packet, yeah.
And
We
in
should
my
have-
packet.
We should have the package for you.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
This
Oh,
is
definitely.
confusing.
but that's what I'm saying. When I get
You get-
when I
You
get
send
my
in the
package,
application,
Yes.
they're gonna send you a package through the mail.
okay.
Which will allow, and it contains a number of envelopes.
Okay.
And that affidavit, the actual ballot goes in the affidavit envelope, which you have filled out and checked, hopefully, whatever you have to check. You will get it, and that's what your ballot goes in. Those affidavit envelopes are sent to the counters, and each political party.
That one goes to this, into a secrecy envelope, which goes into another
Which has
envelope.
to be opened
And
up,
if you-
yeah.
it's-
But
it's
they
crazy.
go to the officials, the poll officials, and they count that. Both parties, and I've sat there and watched them count them for a number of years as representative of one of the two political parties. When I was a chairman at one time, and I've watched them and witnessed them count them. And basically, they just look to make sure those four things are filled out on the affidavit. If they are, then they, you know, and if you have to have two witnesses, not one witness, but two witnesses or a notary public. Those things are checked by the poll officials. They look at that, and so we're talking about the possibility of taking one of those things off, one of the four things off, which is once again stating their reason for voting absentee.
Mr. Chairman, may I point out, Philip, there's also in-person absentee voting you can do.
Right.
I've never done it by mail, but we're gonna be out of town for a trip. You literally just go to the clerk's office and do it right then, on the spot, in person. Just.
And they'll witness it or
Yeah,
notarized or
right
whatever
there,
you
you
have
talk
to
to
have,
them.
yeah. at
It's
the
very,
office.
very similar to what you've done.
They've done that.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
Representative
One
Butler.
more, Representative
And
Roberts.
I'm thinking this process, that would be, absentee would be our weak link in the whole voting process. So, saying that, making it needs to be a little cumbersome to motivate you to person voting.
And I would agree with what I'm agreeing with what you're saying there, that this is, you know, if there's a problem in an election, very often it is with absentee.
The mail-in portion.
Right. And I can see how that would be easily manipulated if you're saying they don't check them like they should or verify them.
But,
And then
but
for
the
whatever
now the
reason-
secret's out the bag. I mean, I blurted that out.
Yeah.
The average person does not know
Well,
that.
and, why? I would expect it to be, you know, more engaging.
Are we,
I hope it will be.
one more comment, Representative Simpson.
part of the problem that I have with this is this goes to election night versus election week. When we're coming into election results that come in, we don't have problems at the polling precincts. Very rarely there are problems at the polling precincts. When you see the 3, 4 in the morning returns that come through, when you see the jumps that go through in elections that come through, they're done on absentee ballots because of the problems that go through the process with absentee ballots. The less of a, I don't want to say burden, but I want to say a hurdle that we make for absentee ballots. The more absentee ballots that you have, the more absentee ballots that you try to pursue, then the more problems are going to come up in that absentee ballot aspect of it. So if we want to eliminate election day and move to election week, and you want to eliminate election results becoming in as they come in quickly, then this would be an avenue to go down. If you want election day to be election day, if you want results to be the results as they come in, I think for some form of voter integrity, for election integrity, so you're not just looking at midnight, 3 a.m. bumps of all these people coming in, that's why I'd be opposed to it.
All right, Representative Lomax.
I think originally, Representative, you know, it makes it easier on the circuit clerks, in their eyes. I understand that. I think what my issue is that this application doesn't have to be notarized. So essentially, you can make up a reason on here, but when you take this affidavit and you put a reason, you sign your name, you get it notarized, it says on here that you are legally affirming it to be true and correct to the best of your knowledge, and that there's penalties that are punishable if you give false information, and then you turn that in. I mean, this is the one that has all the standing. So essentially, your application, it doesn't really matter what you put on here, you're just getting a ballot. But I think Representative Simpson mentioned it earlier on this affidavit. That's what actually goes with the ballot, and this is the one with all the teeth to it. So I think that's my concern there, is that without this, I mean, we're essentially no excuse voting.
Kind of back to what Representative Shirey said, it has greater legal standing, is what you're saying, basically. Yes, Representative Clark.
As I listened to Representative Simpson, I remember something that the clerk said in that meeting with Representative Hassel. They said that when they get bombarded with calls is on the day after the election, because when the poll workers, as you explained, Chairman Fincher, when they go through and sort and put the stack of ballots that are rejected, that the poll workers start calling people saying your vote isn't going to be counted, that your ballot is rejected. And then guess what the first thing the person want to know is why.
Well, really, they have no responsibility to call anybody.
They don't, but the clerk said they get bombarded the next day once the voters hear that their vote didn't get counted, and they are demanding to know why.
All right. Do I hear a motion? We have discussed thoroughly, I think.
I move that we give the bill a favorable report.
All right, Representative Clark makes a motion to give the bill a favorable report. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Representative Rafferty. Well, we do that, didn't we? I'm old fashioned. We're ready to vote?
Mr. Chairman, I asked for a roll call vote.
You asked for a roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
All right. Roll call vote is been requested by Representative Simpson. There doesn't have to be a second for that. So if we can have a roll call vote then. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chair.
I'll vote no.
Mr. Chair, no. Mr. Mooney. Ms. Gavon. Mr. Pringle. Mr. Pringle votes no. Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Ms. Clark votes yes. Mr. Simpson.
No.
Mr. Simpson votes no. Mr. Rafferty.
Yes.
Mr. Rafferty votes yes. Mr. Pascal.
Yes.
Mr. Pascal votes yes. Mr. Hassel.
Yes.
Mr. Hassel votes yes. Mr. Butler.
No.
Mr. Butler votes no. Mr. Harrison.
No.
Mr. Harrison votes no. Mr. Lomax.
No.
Mr. Lomax votes no. Mr. Rigsby.
No.
Mr. Rigsby votes no. Mr. Robertson.
No.
Mr. Robertson votes no. Mr. Sherry.
No.
Mr. Sherry votes no.
4 yes and 9 no.
4 yes, 9 no. Thank you. All right, our second bill today is House Bill number 457 by Representative Wood. Representative Wood, would you come and present your bill?
Yes, sir. And may I ask for an opportunity to share a little bit before the synopsis of why where we are today, Mr. Chairman? In 2018, my family made the decision that we would run for the State House. It's a family decision. Most of you know that. And I ran against several people. It was an open seat. Won the majority vote, but not enough. Had to go to a primary runoff, and there were 6 votes between I and my opponent. Only 6 votes. So we went to the provisional ballot. I ended up picking up 1, and any day in the state of Alabama, a win by 7 is a good if you're playing football. but by 7, you really start wondering and thanking the process. And so everywhere I went, in the grocery store, Walmart, people would come up to me and they'd go, my vote was one of the 7. My vote was one of the 7 that got you over. And I would look at them and I'd say, absolutely, because I knew the people that I was talking to were legitimate voters. That's why I could say, yes, it was your vote. It was your vote. So this year, I had a young lady approach me and say, why is Alabama one of the only states that's not audited? And I said, I really don't know. I really don't know what we're afraid of. Why aren't we auditing? The DS-200 machines were deployed when I was the county commissioner. And let me tell you how those machines are delivered to the polls. They're put on the back of a pickup truck, a flatbed truck. Very seldomly are they put in a covered trailer tied down properly. Have one machine that fell off the truck on the interstate, went in the median, was picked back up, put on the truck, and delivered, and was the tabulator for that next election. So we haven't taken the time to audit the tabulators, the machines, not the individuals running the polls, to see if those machines are still doing what they're supposed to do, providing accurate election results. And that's what this bill is about. We need to have post-election audits to determine that the tabulators are correct. So the original bill that we filed asked for a lot more than the substitute that you've been given today. Because as you know, when we file a bill, that's when all of our sweet little partners come to us and say, we don't like your bill. So I had the opportunity to work through a lot of that to get to the substitute where we are today. The ACCA has been wonderful working with me because this will fall on the backs of the counties to perform the audits. So we worked with them. I was on the phone late last night with our Secretary of State, and I'll tell you this, he's not happy that the bill says that he's got to pay for it. I'll be real honest with you. That's what he said. So, but if we can get it out of committee, we're going to find a way to pay for this. So this bill says, it's very simple. We've simplified the bill to say that one precinct, only one, and one polling center will be randomly selected after a general election to have an audit. That's it. The canvassing board will determine the poll workers that will perform it. Your canvassing board is your local probate judge, your circuit clerk, and your sheriff. They'll decide the poll workers that are supposed to implement them. They will provide the information, the boxes that need to be opened. And then that information, if there's more than half of 1% difference, will have to be provided to the Secretary of State. And then the Secretary of State is the one who will come up with the forms for them to fill out, and then we will be notified of those results as well. Several states this year alone, some of the ones that were a little odd to me, Idaho, Missouri, New Hampshire, South Dakota, they've all passed post-election auditing bills. So I definitely don't want Alabama to be the only one that's not performing audits in our state. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I will take any questions.
All right. Any questions about this bill from the committee? Representative Simpson.
Yes, sir.
You have a substitute, correct?
Yes, I'm speaking of the substitute, thank you for saying that. So, not the original bill, and that's what, the substitute is the one that has replaced all of this information by working with the partners to get to the point to where we are today. So what I just described to you is the substitute bill.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the substitute.
There is a motion on the floor to adopt the substitute.
I gave
By
it to you
Representative
yesterday, sir.
Simpson.
Yes, sir.
Representative Pascal seconds. I don't wanna cut off any discussion or anything. Is there anybody that has any questions for the sponsor? All right, Representative Pringle.
Last year, yeah, 21, we passed a bill by standards that did an audit. Have y'all read this audit?
I have not read the results of that audit. I have been told what the audit says, but I have not read it.
I mean, it's, you want to answer? I mean, it basically, we did Dallas County, Marshall County, and Houston County. Did we find any discrepancies?
3 counties.
How big were they? I just saw one vote.
It was just the one.
Kay Ivy got one less vote, her opponent got one more, and that was in Dallas County, wasn't it?
400
Was it total? I just saw Dallas, it was one.
No, one vote, but 400 out of 400
Out of 400 ballots, yes.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I understand what you're trying to get to, and I'm not opposed to the bill, I want people to understand, those ballots are sealed for a reason. There's a reason why those ballots are sealed permanently. And Leslie, what do you do if there's a challenge to an election in a county? How are you gonna audit that county?
Well, the bill states that the Secretary of State, Secretary Allen will make those decisions. So, I think, we are at a point to where we want individuals to know that their vote counts. And we've been told that we have the highest integrity in the state by individuals who run the state. But there's really no validity to that. So I think that if we're going to ask people to go through the process, and y'all had some great healthy discussion about sometimes how hard it is to get to the point to be able to vote. If we want people to continue to go through that process, they have to know their vote counts.
Oh, I totally agree with you, but, I mean, every time you count those ballots, you're gonna get a different number.
Well, you shouldn't, because your canvassing board is in charge. They're the ones who select the poll workers. So if I'm the probate judge and I'm the circuit clerk and I'm the sheriff, I think I would pick the ones that I know are gonna do the very best job. And then and poll watchers have the ability to be in the room as well. The bill says that.
I have real concerns over opening those ballots again.
I understand.
Because that's been a long-standing, in case there's a legal challenge, we know those ballots have not been opened, they have not been tampered with, they have not been touched. That seal's broken, there's a problem. In future litigation, if we get into a county where there's a challenge, how are we gonna just not count that?
Representative Wood, now I think the bill, if I'm not mistaken, the bill says if there is a challenge to an election,
Then
that
you
the
can't
board
use that
will
one.
move
That's
to
correct.
another election.
It goes to a different one, yeah.
They
You
will
can't-
switch
right,
to a different
correct,
one if there is a
correct.
challenge.
Line
It does say
36,
that.
line 36.
Yeah, I see it right there.
Yeah, it says that, yes.
So,
So thank you, Chairman.
that's what the process would be
That's
there.
right, that's right. They have to choose a different election.
I understand that, but if you
A different
have
precinct.
a sheriff's race in that county that's being challenged, you automatically wipe out every voting precinct in that county, because every one of them's being challenged.
It's a countywide race,
Yeah,
yes.
you automatically wipe it out.
Yes.
I mean, that's the way challenges work. So, I mean, I understand what you're getting to, I'm afraid you.
Well, it's good information, but
Pandora's box there, because I think every time you count it, you're gonna come up with a different number.
I don't think so.
You have a question?
I think they ought to check the machines before they put them out there.
Representative Simpson.
You want to check
Mr.
the
Chairman,
machines.
Mr. Chairman, I've been recognized
Oh, I'm
by-
sorry, I didn't mean to step on Representative Pringle, I thought you were done.
No. I mean, I think you ought to check the machines before you put them in the voting precincts. Do they not check them, the accuracy beforehand?
Go ahead.
They do.
Yeah,
They
they do test
So we
ballots.
check them
do.
beforehand.
They do a test.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a favorable report.
Thanks for running over. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks for keeping us here so long.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm about to
So
question.
let's let you know where you are. We're on some, we're not on the subject.
We have not voted on the sub yet, but we have a sub. This is you are.
Have we adopted no,
Let's adopt the sub.
We have to adopt the sub. And that was your motion, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
so Mr. Simpson made the motion, Mr. Pascal.
Seconded, and that's where we are at this point,
Yes,
right?
sir.
All right, all those in favor of adopting the sub, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it and the sub is adopted. All right. So we're to the point where we have adopted the sub,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a favorable report.
motion for a favorable report. Do we have a second? Second from the same one, Representative Pascal. All right.
A roll call vote.
You asked for a roll call vote, all right? Representative Clark has asked for a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk, would you please
So this
lead
is
the
the roll
roll?
call vote for the adopting the amendment as sub.
Yes, adopting as,
Mr. Chair.
aye.
Mr. Chair, aye. Mr. Mooney. Ms. Devon. Mr. Pringle.
Aye.
Mr. Pringle, aye. Ms. Clark.
Abstain.
Abstain. Ms. Clark abstains. Mr. Simpson.
Yes.
Mr. Simpson votes yes. Mr. Rafferty.
Yes.
Mr. Rafferty votes yes. Mr. Pascal.
Yes.
Mr. Pascal votes yes. Mr. Hassel.
Yes.
Mr. Hassel votes yes. Mr. Butler.
Yes.
Mr. Butler votes yes. Mr. Harrison.
Yes.
Mr. Harrison votes yes. Mr. Lomax.
Yes.
Mr. Lomax votes yes. Mr. Rigsby.
Yes.
Mr. Rigsby votes yes. Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Mr. Robertson votes yes. Mr. Sherry.
Yes.
Mr. Sherry votes yes. 12 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain.
All right. Thank you very much. We are now dismissed.